Hello, my name is Chris. Welcome to my channel. This is a video mostly for people who are new to the Leica Q3 or who have recently updated to version 4 of the firmware from version 3. In this video, I tried to be as detailed as possible while also being as fast as possible. While this video is certainly not comprehensive, it is rather long. If there are any things that I covered that were a little too fast, or other areas that you're curious about that I didn't cover, please feel free to leave comments below and I will answer everything the best to my ability. Anyway, here we go. Enjoy. So we're gonna jump into this and I'm gonna put on my old man glasses because I want to make sure I can see everything. I have reset my camera back to factory. Now, the first thing you need to understand about Leica is the word profile. P-R-O-F-I-L-E, profile. Profile means many different things, especially in this new version of the software. User profiles have been here the whole time, but they've introduced profiles for other settings as well, like info profile and video profile. On the main setting, you can see there's already a default profile. Now, if you're anything like me, you didn't think anything about this when you got a Leica. I came from Fujifilm and then Panasonic. I understood the idea of custom settings. I really didn't think much of user profiles. In fact, to be honest, because Leicas are so expensive and sometimes shared between partners who are both photographers, I kind of thought that's what it was for, and I was completely wrong on what a user profile is. A user profile is a custom setting at its base. How you use the C dial on a lot of other cameras is a lot like what a user profile is. The only difference with Leica is it means everything. I mean, I really didn't know this. And the reason I'm making this emphatic point is because when I updated my firmware earlier in 2025, I did not know user profiles were this important, and when I did the update, it asked me if I wanted to save my profiles, and I didn't because I didn't even make a user profile. I didn't even think to. And when it ran the firmware update, it wiped my camera clean. If I had had my profile, I would have been able to import my profile and get all of my settings back. One of the things that has been introduced in the new software is these 8 custom buttons are now programmable. You can press and hold on any of them to choose what you want in them. This is a fantastic upgrade from the previous software because there were things like Leica Looks and the Leica Photos, and you couldn't get rid of Leica Photos. It was just one of the 8 buttons. We'll get back to this menu, but first I want to go through some of the settings that I set up to make sure that everything is set the way I want. Something else that changed from version 3 to version 4 is they took away the concept of favorites and they took away customized controls to allow some controls to appear in some buttons and some controls to appear in other buttons. Now you have to make this sort of universal declaration about customized control. Let's get into how I set up my camera. I have just my regular raw photo profile, and that's the one I'm going to set up first. You're going to want to go through each and every one of these and set up the way you like to shoot. I use autofocus, and I'll go through and I want to make sure that autofocus center is my typical autofocus mode. I actually prefer zone multi-field as my preferred autofocus method. Autofocus detection, I actually turn this to off, but I set a quick key, one of the buttons to quickly enable the detection. The tracking start position I leave in the center. The assist lamp, I always turn this off. I can't stand it. Auto magnification, this is only if you're using manual focus. I will get into another profile where I shoot more of an old style camera, you know, when I really want to get into the Leica experience. So I'll just leave that off for now because this is my just walking around. I want to shoot in RAW. Touch autofocus is how I use the LCD. Touch autofocus in EVF, if I'm holding the camera to my face, I don't feel the need to touch autofocus, so I don't do that. Okay, so that's focusing. Metering, I do leave at multi-field for now, but this is one of the buttons I'm going to customize because it's one of the things that I do like to change. Exposure compensation, I actually go ahead and do -1/3. I just leave it there as my sort of default. On your ISO, sorry, I just recently learned that it is not ISO. It doesn't stand for anything. It's actually ISO. It's because it's a base from like a Greek word. Anyway, I just learned it myself. I find myself falling back on ISO, but it is actually ISO. This is a really powerful camera and pretty great noise handling at high ISO. And I go ahead and leave it at 12,500, which I know sounds crazy to a lot of people. It sounds crazy to me. And I don't set any of these for this mode. Drive mode is just single continuous. If you like to do burst, I do not like to do burst because I don't like to go through that many photos. Self timer. That's something that I can enable. That's actually one of the buttons. File format. For this user profile, which is me shooting in RAW, I don't have any interest in JPEGs. I do have interest in JPEGs, but that's a different user profile. So I'm not going to worry about JPEG settings for now. I'm not even going to worry about Leica Looks for now. So I am just going to go into here. There's an auto mode, and then there's, these appear to be new. I actually don't recognize these from the previous software. Sport, portrait, and landscape. Night, portrait, snow. This looks like something you'd find on a Sony or a Nikon. You know, these are settings I've seen in other camera systems before. I have not seen it in a Leica before. So this is actually brand new for me to see this. Noise reduction on long exposures. That's a take it or leave it situation. If you're a purist, you may say, no, I don't want that. Perspective control. There's very few things on this camera that I feel are a gimmick, but that one is one of them. It sort of works. I'd much rather just take the photo and use Lightroom's geometry features to just go ahead and sort of clean that up. The thing about cleaning that stuff up that you have to remember is if you're standing on the street and you're shooting with a 28mm lens and you straighten everything out, it's going to look weird. It doesn't look like what it should look like. This is something that you should really be careful about, you know, changing the perspective. My personal opinion on that one. All right, let's continue. Optical image stabilization is a must. At this point, I can't imagine having a camera without it. I love doing long exposures, handheld, just have to have that on. Aspect ratio, 3:2. I don't really mess with that. I do have a flash for this camera, but I'm not using it right now. Customized control, we'll come back to that. Capture assistance. This one is interesting. This is your profiles for what you want to view when you press this center button here. So when I press this button, do you see how the information went away, and you press it again and some new information? There's a histogram now, and now there's some grid lines. These are all part of that info profile under Capture Assistance. So when you go into Capture Assistance, what you're doing is you're setting different profiles for how many times you press that button. In this case, Leica ships with 4 profiles active. You can turn them on or off. You can set them to your heart's desire. Right now, what I'll do is say, for the main photo info, I want to have info bars on the top and bottom and everything else off. I do actually want to use it that way. For profile 2, what I'm going to say is I want my top and bottom on, my right on, and right is new in this software. This did not used to appear. This is my profile 1 that you're looking at now. And then I go to profile 2, and you can see now that I have the right menu items in here to sort of give you some more information. So I want to do that. And that's on profile 1. No. That is on profile 2. That's my info bars, okay? And then on profile 2, I also want to make sure I have my level gauge on. So that's my second view. And then on my third view, I want to have info bars on, my grid 3x3, focus peaking no, clipping no, level gauge yes, and histogram on yes. And then on 4, this is my clean feed. I want this, everything off. So this is how I get rid of all my stuff. Now, obviously, you can determine what is more important to you and set it up that way. But for me, I like to have one clean feed so that when I'm looking, I can clear out all the information and just look at the photo. This also shows up inside your EVF as well. I set that up. And in a lot of other camera systems, when you set something like that up, it's sort of across the board. Even if you change the custom settings dial, those kinds of settings remain. Not so in this new software. So when I go create a new profile, I can base it off of this profile, saving me a lot of work, but I can also create a new profile with completely different information. Storage management, that is just formatting your cards. Shutter type, hybrid. I do use hybrid. I don't mind the electronic shutter when, I need the higher shutter speed than the 2000 that's on the mechanical shutter of the Q3. I never do auto review. This is a personal preference. I just don't bother looking at my images until I get home. I don't want to get caught in the moment missing a photograph because I'm looking at a photo I took, a few seconds ago. I actually don't know what group display mode does. So I'm just leaving it as is. It's on. Exposure preview, Leica Photos app. This is where you pair with your camera. And then here's user profiles. Camera settings, you can set things like your power saving mode, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I like to do 5 minutes. Auto power off, auto display off. Display settings, you can set your brightness. You can do auto, or you can set it manually. I just do auto. EVF brightness. It does make you look through the EVF. I'm not going to do that right now. So for now, I'm going to save this here. I want to set some favorites, some things that I know I'm going to set in here. So what I like to do is I like to have my profiles up in the top right. I have this sort of across my cameras now. I will put user profile up there in the top right. And then on here, I want to do white balance. I'm going to do exposure metering. That's good. That's good. I'm going to do self timer. And drive mode is there, and that is good. I'll just leave that for now. And then I want to do customize controls. This one is also important. Let's go back to customize control. Now, these are your function buttons. Your function buttons can also be customized and set for each profile. So let me show you something. In the function buttons, I can toggle on off what I want in this profile. Now, when I'm shooting raw, I have no desire to go into video, so I turn that off. But I didn't turn it off for everything. I just turned it off for the profile I'm creating. Info levels, digital zoom. I do use digital zoom up to 75. So I'm going through and I'm just looking at all the different settings that I might want to have on these buttons. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. These are all the settings. Everything that you can set, you can do with function buttons. Digital zoom steps, I turn off 90 millimeter. I don't find it to be useful at all, but I do use 35, 50, and 75. That is my customized controls. Pretty much have this menu system the way I want. So now I have to start making declarations about the buttons. The far left one, just to the right of the Leica camera, I go ahead and press and hold. And now I can determine what this button does. And I actually do use the digital zoom, so that's what I do for this one. The other one is I use for focus. So I like to do autofocus lock. Up on the top, I like to do ISO. That's already set that way. And then the info button is this button in the middle here. You can change that to anything you want. I like to toggle the info levels, so that's what I do with it. And I think that's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And this is the important part. You're going to save this as a profile. And I'm going to save it in my profile 1. I'm going to rename my profiles. So my profile 1, I want to rename this. And the touchscreen does work. So I find this to be a little bit easier. And I'm just going to call this raw. And now that's called raw. When I save to profile 1, yes. Now when I'm in the menu system and I have this, there's cancel, there's default, and there's raw. So default will set you back to the way the camera was. And that I had to learn the hard way as well. And if I change this to the default, you'll see that everything has been reset on this screen here, like Leica standard. That's a Leica look. When I change that back over to raw, now my profile's up here. The Leica looks are gone from here. All of my settings are now on the camera. That's how I set my raw setting. I'll do another one just like it, and I will save this as another profile. So I'm going to rename this profile, and I'm going to call this Leica Looks. Leica Look. I'm going to save into here, and I'm going to make some changes. When you do these profiles, while this all seems very intimidating, remember that you can go through and start to play around with your settings. And when you like a setting, you're like, oh, I prefer this button to be mapped to this other thing. Just do that and then go save it again. Just keep saving it. Don't feel like you're trapped or anything like that. You know, this is your camera. They're not trying to get in your way. In fact, if anything, I think they're making it much, much easier than most cameras make it with the C dial. It's so different than the way other cameras make it that it's like a huge learning curve. But once you get it, once you figure it out, this is your camera. Here, I'm going to make some changes real quick. I'm going to change, what is this set to? Multi-field, yeah, I want that. I'm going to set this P dial here. I'm going to set this to Leica Looks. And I'm going to change this immediately to high contrast, Leica Looks. Oh, the other thing I want to change is I want to make sure that I'm shooting in JPEG and DNG. And the reason I want the DNG is because it's safe. I want to always have the raw file. So when you shoot in a Leica Look, it'll shoot that color into the JPEG, but your raw file is still raw. And so I still prefer having that raw file to fall back on, especially if it's an image that I want to take control over. But I do like using the Leica Looks. I think they're fine, and I enjoy sharing my JPEGs, but I always have a DNG. And then I want to go and make sure that I'm using, again, more settings. So if you go into a Leica Look, like monochrome or monochrome high contrast, you can actually make more adjustments than you used to be able to do in version 3 of the firmware. This is a big improvement too. This is closer and closer to the experience that Fujifilm or Panasonic Lumix shooters have, where you can really dial in a look. And there's one other thing I was looking for, and it is customize. It is capture assistance. That's right. And I want setting 3, I believe, to have focus peaking. Actually, I want that in 2 as well. Because I'm using manual focus, I want to make sure I have focus peaking enabled. If I don't want to have focus peaking, I just hit the info button, the center dial thumb button, until I get to info profile 1 or 4, which is the clean feed, and then focus peaking goes away. It's really nice to have it that way. I will save user profile, manage profile, save as profile, my Leica Look, and yes. And now when I go back and I click this button and I switch to raw, you'll see my 8 favorites. And then if I switch this over to Leica Look, you'll see my 8 favorites have changed. That's how I have my first 2 profiles. You can set as many profiles as you want, but I would highly recommend making that one really your profile and making sure that you save it. And the other thing that you need to do, you go to user profiles and you go to manage. And when you export, it will export to your SD card. You can then put your SD card in your computer, save that somewhere. If ever you want to wipe your Leica and start over again, or you want to update the firmware and you want to make sure you get your profiles back, that's how you can do it. You can import here as well. So yeah, the big takeaway here, and the thing I really needed to learn, was Leica does not do a very good job of holding your hand. They sort of give you this very expensive device and leave you to it. And you kind of have to figure it out. But once you get what they're doing, once you understand the Leica way, it becomes easier to make it yours, which is really a strange thing to say, I know. But the truth is, compared to the C dial on my Lumix camera, which is crazy, right? I have a photo mode with 5 custom settings and, of course, PASM. And then I have a video mode with PASM and 5 custom settings. And underneath custom setting 5, there's like 5 more slots. So I can go hog wild with custom settings. There are some features on the Lumix camera that you set in a profile, but it actually changes whenever you use any of your custom settings. You've got some pieces that are in the custom setting, and you've got other features that are in the whole camera. Leica's not like that. You have a custom profile, and it is everything in your camera. Now that I understand them, I use them like crazy. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was useful. If it was, please remember to give it a thumbs up. That always helps. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.